G'day guys, Tills20 here and welcome back to Springfield. If you're brand new to the series or brand new to the channel, welcome. This is our series where we are doing a recreation of the city of Springfield from the TV show The Simpsons. And today is a very special episode because we are going to be building one of the most iconic or most well-known areas of Springfield or from The Simpsons, and that is the nuclear power plant. Luckily for me, there are some really great reference shots of the nuclear power plant, so I'm totally basing it off a couple of shots in particular. Like lots of places in The Simpsons, the area seems to change all the time and the location seems to change all the time, but I'm pretty happy with the area that I chose for this, and I think this just turns out really great. So look forward to the end cinematics where you can see it all come together. This is one of the rare builds within this project where I can get away with using a lot of generic assets from the workshop to recreate something from The Simpsons, but this is pretty rare. This is a nuclear power plant and it's pretty generic looking. And I do use a lot of props and assets that you will see me make some really great references to The Simpsons, but this is still a pretty rare case where I can actually pull this off. So I do want to put the call outs to you guys. If you are an asset creator or are interested in getting involved within the projects, please get in touch. You can DM me. I've got a bunch of different places where you can do that down in the description below. And we've even got a Discord channel where we are basically talking about the different areas of this project. I've got a wish list as well of things that I desperately would love or things that I am interested in recreating but don't really know how to. And if you are not an asset creator and just want to get involved, you can let me know in the comment section of areas or things that you think I should definitely build. What I'm thinking about doing with the structure of these videos is I'm thinking of building the place within the time lapse, and then if you guys leave comments saying, hey, Tudors, don't forget about this episode, or don't forget about when this happens. And then later in the series, or potentially the next episode, I can go back and add in those little details that you guys leave, maybe in 5 minutes or something at the beginning of the episode or at the end of the episode. And I think it'd be really fun getting in those references because I feel like I know a lot of the references, but no doubt I'm going to forget about adding in some of those little details that I think would be really, really fun about this project. So what I've been up to so far with the time lapse is I started off by just doing a little bit of road layout in more of the downtown area of the city, just because I wanted to figure out the direction of the grid and wanted to see how this was going to fit within like the general location of the city. And I thought that looking at a lot of reference shots of the nuclear power plant, I figured that this was probably most realistically going to sit on the outskirts of the town or of the city. And that seems to be like the general nature of it. Like every time I look at any pictures or videos of the nuclear power plant, it seems to be out of the city more so than any other shot. But like I said before, this seems to change location all the time. There's literally an episode where Homer parks his car and it's right next to his house.
Same old space, huh, Dad?
Yep. So it's sort of like, well, I don't know where this sits, but I'm pretty happy with where this is, even though I'm probably going to put Evergreen Terrace on the other side of the river, pretty far away from the nuclear power plant. That's just something that we just have to kind of compromise on. Serves me right for trying to recreate something from a TV show, I guess. And basically what I've been doing is I've just been playing around with this modular nuclear reactor that is created by Ronix69. He has done this really amazing version of a nuclear power plant. There is one, of course, within the base game, and it's so tiny and unrealistic compared to what this thing is. This thing is massive, but you know, is actually quite realistic when it comes to how these things look. And this, like, don't expect this to be a realistic looking nuclear power plant. I am not looking at any nuclear power plants for references or real life power plants. So this is purely based on the one from The Simpsons. And like I said, really lucky to have some really great shots of this because there's not a lot of shots of these main areas within Springfield, unfortunately. So I have to really fill in a lot of gaps and not unfortunately, this is actually a massive plus, but just watch a lot of Simpsons and figure out where like a lot of these places are going to sit within the city. But most of the shots of the power plant are from the inside.
It's gotten away.
Oh, we did bad.
But like I said, I just really needed that one reference shot so that I can get a bit of an idea of where things are going to sit. And it's funny just how much it changes from shot to shot. It's like one shot there's heaps of greenery around here, and the other shot there's, you know, it's very concretey and there's less buildings. So I really just tried to find a happy middle ground and stuck with just that general idea of it. But really, the majority of it's pretty much in place with how I want it to look. So something that really sealed the deal for me was putting in this perimeter fence, because I noticed that there was this like big fence that goes around it, which is, I think, pretty realistic to nuclear power plants, because I think they'd be pretty secure locations. You don't really want the general public just wandering in. I think that'd be somewhat dangerous, particularly the one from The Simpsons is like heaps of nuclear stuff just like leaking everywhere, and it's really run down, and you will see me put lots of cracks and like damaged areas because it's pretty run down in the show. So I figured we should probably stay true to that.
Yeah, well, that's always been like that.
But I wanted there to be this perimeter fence around the outskirts of the power plant, and I ended up just using this prison fence that came with this really great collection that Bad Peanut did. It's a prison fence, and he did a whole bunch of other prison buildings and stuff like that. It was almost like getting an expansion pack. It was such a great addition to the game. So I used that, and I just think it works really nicely because there's also a road that's there too, and it just works really well. Now I'm starting to put in some buildings, and they're really just very generic looking warehouses. I don't know what their feature is or what the function is, and at this stage I'm just filling in the gaps. Not really too many references here, unless you guys can think of anything, or you got an idea of what I can be placing around here. But yeah, really just placing down any sort of warehouse or factory looking type of building. Do not want to do huge amounts of detail or filling in too much around here because, well, a couple of reasons. First of all, I want to try and keep a pretty decent frame rate within this series. We're going to be detailing a lot of it, but also leaving a lot of it somewhat under detailed so we can get a really nice balance. And also, these power plants don't have a huge amount of stuff going on. Besides the nuclear reactor and some general warehouses and office blocks and parking, you know, a lot of these areas are very barren or very concretey, if that's a word. It is a word now. So there's a lot of space in between, which works to my advantage because I can just leave a lot of gaps. But I just decided to place down a couple of decals just to fill in a little bit of the concreteness. Because you can have too much concrete, I think, and you got to try and find that good balance. And now we're starting to work on the office area, and I wanted to put in this parking lot. This is where we break away from the Stonecutters episode where Homer's right next to, well, basically the power plant's right next to the Simpsons house. I'm not going to do that because I just feel like they only did that for that one episode, but I think it's more realistically away from their house. So we're going to put it over here, and the parking lot is just not in relation to that scenario. But what I wanted to do for this parking lot is something a little bit different, and I'm using this very generic, I think it might be a Japanese road, I believe, I could be wrong, but it's this road that already comes with this asphalt look on the sidewalks, and it's really useful for when you're trying to create some more custom style car parks. They're really great roads because they have a lot of detail on them, and the curb is pretty flush with the rest of the pavement, so it means that it feels a little bit more like a road that you'd see within a car park. And then you can get the decal parking lots really close to the edge as well, which I really like. So this isn't a functional car park. This is purely just for the looks. But I didn't really want it to be functional because I knew that I needed it to be pretty custom, and I also wanted it to always be full. Whereas I don't think it would be full if it was like a functional car park, because there's not that many jobs around here. Even though a nuclear power plant has a lot of jobs and a lot of workers, I think within Cities Skylines you wouldn't be able to get that. Unless I was using the Rico mod, but I'm not. So I'm just using a lot of props, and you will notice that the cars are pretty much all 90s era vehicles with the exception of some 80s, and there's probably a couple of 2000s there, but I was trying to be really careful with the types of models that I chose, but you might see a couple of exceptions. But yeah, trying to stick with the 80s, sorry, with the 90s as much as possible. And this building here is of course where Mr. Burns works and his office, and I was like, you know, we need to make it look like Mr. Burns' office is somewhere. And I knew that he had this balcony that he does this like overlord dictator-esque speeches on.
And remember, a shiny new donkey for whoever brings me the head of Colonel Montoya.
What?
And I thought, you know what, we need to put in that somewhere. So just very basic, just putting in some props that I can raise. This is before I was using procedural objects within this save. It's a mod that really helps me out. I do a lot of really great stuff with it. And on that, I am a couple of episodes ahead of you guys so that we've got a little bit of a buffer. I like to get about 3-4 episodes ahead when I start a new series, because that way, if something was to happen and I'm not able to record any episodes for a week or so, I've still got videos to go out for you guys, and you're not stuck with no videos for a new series. And it just makes me chill because I know that I've got some videos going out to you guys regardless of what's going on in my personal life. However, I do like to get to a stage where I'm taking on your feedback and putting it into the next episodes, and I always record my commentary after reading the comments or getting the feedback from you guys from the previous episode. So I might be ahead in the builds, but the commentary is always pretty fresh. And plus, I think that this series would be so fun to do a live stream with. So I'm also planning to do that down the track. Back to the build, I am now putting in this really fun thing. I'm putting in Mr. Burns' car. I found this car on the workshop and it's pretty much exactly Mr. Burns' car.
At least I'm out doing things.
And it just looks so great. And I figured he'd need an exclusive car park. It's not going to park his car with the rest of the peasants who work at the plant, and I figured it should be really nice. So we've got some tiles and you know, some hedges and stuff like that, and I'm pretty sure I put down Mr. Smithers' car at some stage, and it's just like this really old bomby car that's like totally nowhere near as great as Mr. Burns. Yes, and this food truck. I think I love this. I love that I put in this food truck.
Where's my burrito? Where's my burrito? Where's my burrito?
I will end up replacing this and putting in, rather than this vanilla one, we'll end up replacing it with one from the workshop, which just looks a little bit better. So this area down here, this is of course where Mr. Burns makes his speeches or gives out important announcements, and I thought that there should be a big bit of space down here, and I just ruining up the surface a little bit by putting in some decals. I will also put in some spawn generators that will end up seeing some oil workers, which I think just fit the scene really well. I think I might actually increase the amount that I place down here, because it would be nice to see lots of workers down here getting important announcements. And now I'm just really going through and adding in some decals and some buildings just around, just to fill in those gaps, to make it really feel like the you know, this place is a little bit more alive. And this is probably like less part of the show. This is more like me filling the gaps and figuring out where things go, but also still taking into account that the power plant is really run down, so making sure there's lots of cracks and lots of grass just like coming up from the ground just a little bit. This area here is where the electricity comes from the power plant and goes into the power lines. The transmitter, something. It's trans something. I can't remember the proper name of it. But yeah, this is where that's where it all happens, is what I'm trying to say. Just lowering down the power lines into the ground, it made the ground like distort and go down. Using my words very descriptive right now, but yes, the ground go down when I put down the power lines, basically. And I just used the poppable surface to basically just cover it up, and it worked well. It worked really nice. And yeah, I think it just makes a really seamless transition. Now I'm putting in some security. This is the main entrance into the power plant, and this is, I'm just using like a bit of a mixture of different types of security. So we have the main boom gates here, which I just decided to keep open. So we see trucks coming in and stuff. And to create the median, I just have these really great these really great assets from the workshop. These are erasable and they're the same style and color as the median in the middle of the avenues of the base game. And if you place down the ploppable pavement on top of them, they just look so good. They're really great for filling in curbs around the roads if you want to try and change the way that they look. So I use them quite a lot, and I will use them really well in a couple of episodes time. Yeah, I think they're really, really helpful, and they're part of my collection that I basically use and subscribe to just about every single project that I end up doing, with the exception of Marble Mountain and Miami. But yeah, you can find that collection in the description below if you're interested in making your own collection. That is basically everything that you could possibly ever want when it comes to, you know, using assets and stuff. But yeah, I really, really highly recommend all those assets and mods within that collection. Now I am trying to work on the fences and the entrances on the other sides of the roads that go inside the power plant. These ones are less detailed and less secure. Well, they're probably just as secure, but I'm just using like some of the fences just to make the perimeter fence just a little bit smaller as well, because I felt like the gap was a little bit too big for security reasons. Of course, I've got this tank in the middle here for obvious reasons. I thought that was really fun. I knew from the very beginning that I was going to use that tank somewhere, and yeah, I just think it fits well in there. Unfortunately, I think in that episode there's like grass all the way around the power plant, so within the actual grounds of the power plant, and I don't know, I feel like that doesn't make any sense. One thing I forgot to add was the place where they're doing the exercise. Oh, maybe there'll be something to add a little later on in a live stream. I think maybe we should do a live stream of the power plant, because there's so many references I'm sure I've missed. And I really wish I had some like green sludge I could just, you know, have around here. I was using some of the oil decals that Ronix released like ages and ages ago, and they're pretty cool, but some green decals would be really, really nice. I don't know, just a little help if you guys are interested. I could get the toxic waste barrels, which I think are a pretty nice touch. Now it's time to work around the edges of the plants, and this is where it really starts to come to life. The foliage that I'm using is a bunch of Grey Flame, who has created these amazing looking assets. So these trees, which I totally love, and like a little bit of the reason why I wanted to start this project and like base it in Oregon, because these trees are just so cool. So yeah, using a bunch of them, and you'll see me use them in like bundles, like clusters around the plant, and they just really they work really well. But I did want this area to feel like the edge of the city, and you know, I'm pretty confident that I'm not going to build too much more around these areas, and I didn't want it just to feel like forest, so that's why we've got a lot of roads going in different locations. I figured there'd probably still be a lot of outskirts facilities, or you know, functions of the power plant that, you know, a lot of the workers are probably driving out to, that only really need a dirt road. And this stream over here, I mean, you're gonna love what I do with this stream. It's really cool. But yeah, I sort of thought that it'd be sort of fun to have some fishing areas and stuff like that really close to the power plant, even though it is like toxic waste that's been pumped into like the stream and around this area. You know, we are kind of going for that cartoony vibe on this, so you know, you might be like, oh dude, you're totally polluting all the trees and your whole city around here. Well, you know, I don't really care about that. We're totally going for a cartoon right now. This is where we branch off from anything that's realistic. But yeah, you saw that I am just placing these trees down in clusters. Seems to work best. This is you know, an area of bit like higher detail than other areas of the city. Like some areas are just not going to have much detail, so we're not going to be doing, you know, trees so close together, but other areas, yeah, we're totally going to be trying to really make this area feel really detailed and realistic, or, you know, totally vibing. And now I'm starting to work on probably one of my favorite parts about this build, and that's this like toxic waste area out the back of the power plant. So this is where it gets pretty unrealistic. This is very much the cartoon aspect of this series, but I think it was definitely something that needed to happen, because this power plant is really unsafe and it's really polluting, and it's just, yeah, it's got full of like toxic waste and all that sort of jazz. Although apparently nuclear power plants aren't really like that in real life, but I think that's open to debate. I don't really know a hell of a lot about power plants, but staying true to the version of the power plant from The Simpsons, we do have these big drains that go straight into the water, and then this stream goes all the way into Springfield. So yeah, I think that's pretty funny and a nice little addition, and one of the reasons why I chose this particular location in the first place. And I do add a little touch as well at the very end, which is a bit of a nod to one of the older episodes, one of the first episodes I think that I saw from The Simpsons, and yeah, I think that's a nice little touch at the end. But in wrapping up, I'm sure I've definitely missed a whole bunch of areas, and if you guys have any suggestions for things that I could add or include, please let me know in the comment section below or get in touch on Discord. That's also another great place to get involved within the series. If you're really enjoying the content and want to support the channel, then I do have a Patreon page where you can get early access to videos, save games like this one, live streams, and just lots of other great stuff, including just the fact that I can release videos as often as I do. That is purely because I have the support of my patrons. I want to give a special shout out to some of those guys: John Van Gert, Christopher C. Penny, Andres Hepp, Nick Grahan, Oliver Assis, and Mike Breeden. Thank you all so much for watching and all the support, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!